Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Sorry. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachariyam. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning, we'll take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, and this morning text 29. bhṛtya-nukampita-dhiyeha gṛhīta-mūrteḥ bhṛtya-nukampita-dhiyeha gṛhīta-mūrteḥ sañcintayed bhagavato vadanāravindam sañcintayed bhagavato vadanāravindam yad visphuran-makara-kuṇḍala-valgitena yad visphuran-makara-kuṇḍala-valgitena vidyotitāmala-kapolam udāra-nāsam vidyotitāmala-kapolam udāra-nāsam bhṛtya-nukampita-dhiyeha gṛhīta-mūrteḥ sañcintayed bhagavato vadanāravindam yad visphuran-makara-kuṇḍala-valgitena vidyotitāmala-kapolam udāra-nāsam bhṛtya-nukampita-dhiyeha gṛhīta-mūrteḥ sañcintayed bhagavato vadanāravindam yad visphuran-makara-kuṇḍala-valgitena vidyotitāmala-kapolam udāra-nāsam Others, please. Vaishnavis. Word to word. Bhṛtya for the devotees. Anukampita-dhiyeha, out of compassion. Eha, in this world. Gṛhīta-mūrteḥ, who presents different forms. Sañcintayed, one should meditate on. Bhagavato, of the Personality of Godhead. Vadana, countenance. Aravindam, lotuslike. Yet which? Visphuran, glittering. Makara, alligator-shaped. Kuṇḍala, of his earrings. Valgitena, by the oscillation. Vidyotita, illuminated. Amala, crystal clear. Kapolam, his cheeks. Udāra, prominent. Nāsam, his nose. Translation and purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The yogi should then meditate on the lotus-like countenance of the Lord, who presents his different forms in this world out of compassion for the anxious devotees. His nose is prominent, and his crystal clear cheeks are illuminated by the oscillation of his glittering alligator-shaped earrings. Responsively, please. The yogi should then meditate on the lotus-like countenance of the Lord, who presents his different forms in this world out of compassion for the anxious devotees. His nose is prominent, and his crystal clear cheeks are illuminated by the oscillation of his glittering alligator-shaped earrings. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Lord descends to the material world out of his deep compassion for his devotees. There are two reasons for the Lord's appearance or incarnation in the material world. Whenever there is a discrepancy in the discharge of religious principles and there is a prominence of irreligion, the Lord descends for the protection of the devotees and the destruction of the non-devotees. When he appears, his main purpose is to give solace to his devotees. Repeating. When he appears, his main purpose is to give solace to his devotees. He does not have to come himself to destroy the demons, for he has many agents. Even the external energy, Maya, has sufficient strength to kill them. But when he comes to show compassion to his devotees, he kills the non-devotees as a matter of course. The Lord appears in the particular form loved by a particular type of devotee. There are millions of forms of the Lord, but they are one absolute. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. All the different forms of the Lord are one, but some devotees want to see him in the form as Radha and Krishna. Others prefer to see him as Sita and Ramachandra. Others would see him as Lakshmi Narayana. And others want to see him as four-handed Narayana, Vasudeva. The Lord has innumerable forms, and he appears in a particular form as preferred by a particular type of devotee. A yogi is advised to meditate upon the forms that are approved by the devotees. A yogi cannot imagine a form for meditation. Those so-called yogis who manufacture a circle or a target are engaged in nonsense. Actually, a yogi must meditate upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that has been experienced by the Lord's pure devotees. Yogi means devotee. Yogis who are not actually pure devotees should follow in the footsteps of devotees. It is especially mentioned here that the yogi should meditate upon the form which is thus approved. He cannot manufacture a form of the Lord. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukhaṁ Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha bhṛtyanukampita-dhiyeha gṛhīta-mūrteḥ sañcintayed bhagavato vadanāravindam visphuran-makara-kuṇḍala-valgitena vidyotitāmala-kapolam udāra-nāsam. The yogi should then meditate on the lotus-like countenance of the Lord, who presents his different forms in this world out of compassion for the anxious devotees. His nose is prominent and his crystal clear cheeks are illuminated by the oscillation of his glittering alligator-shaped earrings. So a couple, maybe 2 or 3 points we could address here. The one is the reason for the Lord's appearance in this world. Srila Prabhupada mentions that at the very beginning of this purport. He comes out of compassion especially for his devotees. There are 2 reasons. And Srila Prabhupada says the main reason is to protect the devotees. Sometimes we hear that the reason is to give delight to the devotees. Maybe Krishna is thinking, let's give them something to talk about. They're going to talk, so let's us give them something to talk about. So when I was reading this, I was thinking of how many of the things, many of the terms discussed in our scriptures have a swarupa lakshana and a tatastha lakshana. Swarupa lakshana is the core aspect or core meaning, and the tatastha lakshana is marginal, secondary meaning. And a lot of times that secondary or marginal meaning might be helping understand it by what it's not. For example, in the first chapter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we have this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami's verse, that is his definition of pure devotional service, uttama bhakti or shuddha bhakti. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama. So that first line, anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam, defines bhakti by what it's not. It narrows the definition. So it's not any aspiration. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana, for the kind of liberation, impersonal liberation that we may gain by practicing jnana, or even the kind of powers we can get by engaging in yoga and meditation, much less karma, jnana karma adi, everything else. I've often pointed out, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, repeatedly, draws a very distinct line between bhakti and absolutely everything else. So as we see in the 5th chapter of the 1st canto, in a couple of verses, Narada Muni is instructing Srila Vyasadeva, and he tells him in verse 17 that if the devotee, that the devotee never loses anything in his practice, but if you engage in other practices, even so-called spiritual practices, first of all, they're very troublesome, and then you have to do them perfectly to gain the result, and then the result's temporary. Even if you attain svarga, when your credit runs out, just like we have to watch the balance on our credit cards or the balance in our checking accounts or whatever. When it gets low, we know that okay, it's time to stop those subscriptions. So that's the marginal characteristic. It's not these things. What does Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj, or no, what does the Srimad Bhagavatam call them? It calls those things, such aspirations, kaitava-dharma, cheating religion. So just as at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, I've made an argument from so many different angles of vision over the last 600 odd verses. Forget it. Forget it all. Sarva dharman parityaja. Not just forget it, completely forget it. Not just walk away from it, run away. And then, mām ekam sharanam vraja. Take complete shelter of me. And then, at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, in the 2nd verse, it's Vastu Nirdesha Shloka. The Bhagavatam says, Dharma prodchita kaitava paramo nirmatsaranam satam. So here's a text. Here's a topic that's meant for people who are satam, completely pure at heart. How is it that they're completely pure in heart? Nirmatsaranam. They don't have any envy for anyone. They don't covet anything that anyone else has. Whether it's stuff, a position, men, women, whatever it is. And how is it that they're completely free from envy? Dharma praudchita kaitava. They've given up, they've completely rejected. Again, it's not just ujjita, it's praudjita, completely rejected. All kinds of kaitava dharma. And Krishnadas Kaviraj in the 22nd chapter of Madhya Lila, when he cites this verse, afterwards he asks, so what do we mean when we talk about kaitava dharma? He says, dharma artha kama moksha vancha. The aspiration for any of these things. So this is the this is the definition by what it's not. It's not any of these things. What is it? Anukulyena Krishna-anushilanam. It's an ongoing activity that's intended to give pleasure to Krishna. That's the Svarupa Lakshana. So I was thinking, maybe here we've got a Tatastha Lakshana and a Svarupa Lakshana. In order to annihilate the demons and to give pleasure to the devotees. Annihilating the demons is kind of the secondary. Prabhupada says he does that as a matter of course, kind of like an afterthought. But his main purpose is to give pleasure to the devotees. Another thing that we see in these verses, in this chapter, we have this another amazing description of the form of the Lord on which a yogi should meditate. Now, this reminds us, because the title of the chapter is Kapila's Instructions on Devotional Service, this reminds us that bhakti is a yoga practice. Krishna, when Arjuna says in the Gita, this is such a bother, this war, such a bother, and the result's not going to be good. He argues from a very dharmic position, superficially anyway, that this is just bad in so many ways, and he lists all those ways, and Krishna doesn't say, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, you're right. No, he smacks him down. He says, while speaking learned words, you're just sounding foolish. All this highfalutin dharma that you're trotting out here, in this situation, it's got absolutely no, carries no weight. So, and because Arjuna's thinking, it'd be better for me just to go to the forest and be a yogi. At least nobody's going to get hurt. And Krishna says, okay, here's what it means to be a yogi. And he gives, in the 6th chapter, he tells very, in somewhat detail, what it means to practice yoga. And Arjuna's like, oh, God. Sounds really hard. Controlling the mind? You got to be kidding me. That's like trying to control the wind. And Krishna says, oh, that's okay. You don't have to. No, he says, yeah, it's hard. But it's possible by detachment and practice. So we see what yoga is, even in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. He tells us in the 2nd sutra, Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga means calming all the agitations in the subtle body, in the chitta. And then he says, tada drashtu swarupe vastana. And in that condition, the seer, which is how he describes the Atman or the Jiva, the seer can live in its natural situation as consciousness, Swarupa. What is, according to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what is the Swarupa of the Atman? Jivera Swarupa Haya Krishna Nityadas. It's always serving Krishna. So what we see is that meditation is actually a very personal thing. The best thing to meditate on is the personal form of the Lord. So we have this wonderful description here. And we have similar descriptions elsewhere in the Gita. Let me see how quickly I can kind of get through these. One is in the 4th chapter, where Narada Muni is instructing Dhruva Maharaj. And he says, he tells him, do all these austerities, do your yoga. And then he says, after sitting on your seat, practice the 3 kinds of breathing exercises, and thus gradually control the life air, the mind, and the senses. Completely free yourself from all material contamination, and with great patience, begin to meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord's face is perpetually very beautiful and pleasing in attitude. To the devotees who see him, he appears never to be displeased, and he is always prepared to award benedictions to them. His eyes, nicely decorated eyebrows, his raised nose, again the raised nose, and his broad forehead are all very beautiful. He's more beautiful than all the demigods. The Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish like the rising sun. He's always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. He's further described as having the mark of Srivatsa, or the sitting place of the goddess of fortune, and his bodily hue is deep bluish. The Lord is a person. He wears a garland of flowers, and he is eternally manifest with 4 hands which hold a conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The entire body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, is decorated. He wears a valuable jeweled helmet, necklaces, including that Kaustubha gem that we discussed yesterday. There we go. And his neck is adorned with the Kaustubha jewel, which represents all of us, in a sense. Keeps us close to his heart, right? His neck is adorned with the Kaustubha jewel, and he's dressed in yellow silk garments. He's decorated with small golden bells around his waist, and his lotus feet are decorated with golden ankle bells. All his bodily features are very attractive and pleasing to the eyes. He's always peaceful, calm, and quiet, and very pleasing to the eyes and the mind. And then another place, which I find this one interesting as well, is in the 14th chapter of the 11th canto. So this is in the Uddhava Gita. So yesterday we were recommended to read the 27th chapter, the process of deity worship. This is the process of engaging in meditation and devotional service. So the Lord, first he describes the yoga process, a seat not too high, not too low, etc. Much like the 6th chapter of the Gita. And then how to move our life airs and control our breathing. And then he gives this description of the form on which we should meditate. Keeping the eyes half closed and fixed on the tip of one's nose, being enlivened and alert, one should meditate on the lotus flower situated within the heart. This lotus has 8 petals and is situated on an erect lotus stalk. One should meditate on the sun, moon, and fire, placing them one after another within the whorl of that lotus flower. Placing my transcendental form within the fire, one should meditate upon it as the auspicious goal of all meditation. That form is perfectly proportioned, gentle, and cheerful. It possesses 4 beautiful long arms, a charming, beautiful neck, a handsome forehead, a pure smile, and glowing shark-shaped earrings. So here the Makara are sharks. If you look up Makara in Monier Williams or Apte, you'll see it's a shark, it's an alligator, or it's some sort of fanciful, mythical thing that's like maybe part dolphin, part alligator or something like that. Quite a wonderful creature. So I remember once I had a student, actually, I had a student at San Diego when I taught at San Diego State University. It was a guy on the football team, and it might have been Marshall Falk, who became rich and famous. He was supposed to win a Heisman Trophy, but he kept getting injured and didn't cover as many yards as he was accustomed to and make as many touchdowns. So he dropped out of San Diego State and accepted the NFL draft, at which point I was thinking, well, it's not everybody who gets drafted gets off the bench, lasts more than a couple of seasons. I hope he knows what he's doing. Well, his whole idea of accepting the draft was to take care of his mom in New Orleans, I think. And he did quite well at that. But he had these earrings that were shaped like dolphins. And I just thought, okay, that's pretty cool. So it has glowing shark-shaped earrings suspended from 2 identical ears. That spiritual form is the color of a dark rain cloud and is garbed in golden yellowish silk. The chest of that form is the abode of Srivatsa, the goddess of fortune. And that form is also decorated with a conch shell, disc, club, lotus flower, and a garland of forest flowers. The two brilliant lotus feet are decorated with ankle bells and bracelets, and that form exhibits the Kaustuba gem along with the effulgent crown. The upper hips are beautified by a golden belt, and the arms are decorated with valuable bracelets. All the limbs of that beautiful form capture the heart, and the face is beautified by merciful glancing. Pulling the senses back from the sense objects, one should be grave and self-controlled, and should use the intelligence to strongly fix the mind on all the limbs of my transcendental body. Thus, one should meditate upon that most delicate transcendental form of mine. And then it gets really interesting. He says, one should then pull the consciousness back from all the limbs of that transcendental body. At that time, one should meditate only on the wonderfully smiling face of the Lord. Being established in meditation on the Lord's face, one should then withdraw the consciousness and fix it in the sky. What? Then, giving up such meditation, one should become established in me and give up the process of meditation altogether. So that's the goal. The goal is actually to connect with Krishna. That is the actual peaceful way. And we see in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaliya Shanta, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataeva Shanta. That the yogi, the person seeking sensual enjoyment, the bhukti, the person seeking liberation, the person seeking yogic perfections, they're never going to be peaceful because there will always be new desires to agitate their chitta. But the Krishna Bhakta, because they don't have any desires, because they don't have an agenda, right? Dharma praudchita kaitavatra. Because they don't subscribe to any cheating dharma, they don't have their own personal agenda, they're completely peaceful. Whatever it is the Lord wants, that's fine with me. I'm reading through this little booklet called Vaishnava Primer. I think it might have been put together by my friend Dharma Setu. That's what I heard from Vaikuntha Prabhu anyway. We read this sometimes with devotees who come stay in the temple. Sometimes that's kind of the extent of our training outside the thing. So I'm reading this with one devotee, and we've been taking side roads whenever we come to like a list of things. I think we're kind of toward the end. So recently we had, what was it, 6 something or other. So then we read about that. So now we're reading Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Songs of Sharanagati, because we got to the point where, the 6 angas of Sharanagati. And it's just, so we take these. We'll eventually finish that little Vaishnava primer. In the meantime, we'll have had a lot of fun discussing all these different things. So what we see is this is a very personal thing. How personal? Well, Srila Prabhupada says the Lord appears in a particular form loved by a particular devotee. Whatever is preferred by a particular type of devotee, that's how Krishna shows himself to that devotee. So it may even be that the 4-armed form of Kshirodakashayi Vishnu may be, I'm not sure displaced or replaced is actually the right way to think about it, but manifest as whatever form of Krishna that we're particularly attached to. So it may, Srila Prabhupada says, maybe Sita Ram, maybe Lakshmi Narayan, it may be 4-armed Vasudeva. It may even be one of the avatars. Some devotees are very attached to Lord Nrsingadev. Whatever that form is, Krishna appears in that way. However the devotee has cultivated his or her love for Krishna. And that's really what this is about. This is about a relationship. Everything in the Bhagavad Gita adds up to Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Right? We see that right in the middle, at the end of the 9th chapter, right in the middle. And then we see it again at the end. Pretty powerful positions in any text. And what that amount, use your mind always thinking of me. Well, here's the meditation, but there are other things too. We can contemplate the Lord's beautiful form. We can contemplate his transcendental characteristics, his lila, and his holy name. Those things are also objects of our contemplation. Manmana bhava madbhakta, become my devotee. Mam namaskuru, offer your obeisance to me. And some commentators say when he says offer your obeisance to me, he's not just talking about, bowing down up, just bobbing and hitting your head on, tapping your head on the floor. He's asking us to offer our entire beings to him. Because what? In the next verse in the 18th chapter, he tells us how to do it. Forget everything else, just take shelter of me, just like here. Forget all the meditation, just take shelter of me. That's the whole deal. And that relationship is meant to be based on love. We see the phrase bhakti yoga throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. I thought recently about doing a count in the Veda base, but maybe I need to spend a little time to figure out how I can just get the verses, not any purports or anything. But it's everywhere, bhakti yoga. And we see bhakti throughout the Bhagavad Gita. It's all about bhakti. Krishna says in the 9th chapter, even if you make a super simple offering, like a leaf, a flower, some fruit, or some water, if you offer it with bhakti, if you offer it with love, if you offer it with affection, he accepts that. He's accepting the affection. He doesn't need my leaf, my flower, my grilled cheese sandwich, or whatever. What he needs, what he wants, is what he's missing, and that's my heart. Give me that, please. Oh, and you can do something with it. You can, if you want, you can make a little offering. And then in the next verse he says, and everything that you do should be done as an offering to me. So offer yourself on the altar, essentially. And it's really all, it's really all about love. That should be the goal of yoga. Okay, I'm already over time. I'm going to stop and entertain any discussion. Any questions, comments, confusions that need to be clarified? Sachi?
He appears in different forms in this material world, and that befits the meditation of the particular devotee. But then I was just considering that, for example, Prahlad Maharaj, here, this is my understanding, he was not thinking in the form of Lord Nrsimhadev. It appears that was like the Lord chooses to take that particular form to come and protect his devotee Prahlad. And then from now on, ourselves, yes, we can meditate in Lord Nrsimhadev in that particular form might appear, but originally, I was thinking Prahlad Maharaj was just being totally absorbed in the Lord, and I didn't know if there was a precedent that he knew there was that form already existing.
Mm. Yeah, it's a rather astonishing form, Adbhuta, right? Adbhuta Singam. Prahlad Maharaj was meditating on Krishna. His Ishtadeva is Krishna. But Krishna manifested as Lord Nrsimha. And Prahlad could appreciate, here's my Lord. Come to end this mess. This is just, my father's just digging himself in deeper and deeper and making so much trouble. And so everyone else wanted, all the devatas wanted to see if they could get Lord Nrsimhadev to wind down, and they weren't able to do so. So they asked Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was so, because of his love for Krishna, and he sees Krishna in Lord Nrsimhadev, then he was able to easily pacify him, and the Lord sat him on his lap, so he was pretty comfortable with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful. Anything else? Oh, okay. All right, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak again in New Dwarka. And thank you for your company. Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gauranga.